online. Cal, please start.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kyle LeConte, your host for another edition of VCTV. We're back. Day 2 of this week, and guess what? Day 2 of a double episode. We've got tons for you here on VCTV. As I mentioned yesterday, all week, we've got double episodes every single day. That's a ton of content coming your way. And we're talking about everything and anything around technology and regions around the world. Yesterday, we covered all different types of topics, from pitching on fundraising on social media, to what we're going to be talking about today. And today we're going to be talking about 3D printing. Now, this is an industry we've been talking about for many, many years, decades in some cases. In the last decade, there's been a lot of conversation around 3D printing, and very notable companies started in this space, some big, some small, some in between, that have focused on areas from 3D printing of hard goods, no pun intended, but hard goods in terms of the products that we use in our everyday lives, to 3D printed food, to 3D printed homes, cars, and almost anything else you can imagine. We've talked before on VCTV about how we're moving into this world with 3D printers where we're going to be getting to products on demand. And this may not hit our homes yet, but actually will hit in a more industrial way with the idea of hyper localization, or dynamic value networks, as we've talked about, as well as just those short form distribution centers. So you can place an order online, it can be 3D printed, shipped to you in a matter of hours or less. In some cases, maybe a little bit longer, as we'll hear from our panels, whether it be those shoes, it be a steak, or it be a brand new home as well. And so a lot to talk about this subject today. And we're joined by two outstanding investors who have been guests here on the show before on VCTV, but are here to talk specifically about these industries as they have made investments, including myself, in this space. So there's a lot to talk about, from consumer, enterprise, industrial, and we'll see what else. And to your audience, thank you so much for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. And to our audience as investors, if you'd like to be on a show like today, reach out to Elena, to LA Token, or to myself, and we'd love to have you. Entrepreneurs, as I've said before, this is not just a stage for investors. This is a stage for you. You can reach out to us and also have the chance to pitch us live along with the full audience any day here on VCTV. So do reach out. And a big thank you and shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible on your device, on your screen, anywhere in the world. All right. With that, gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Alessandro, I feel like it's been less than 12 hours since we've seen each other. We're becoming new best friends. Noble's going to get a little sad, but it's okay. We're glad to have you back. Let's start with you, a little introduction and a little background.
Hi, Kyle and Elena. Thanks for having me again. I will talk to Noble shortly after our call. I'm Alessandro Marianantoni. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm obviously from Italy. Perhaps you may hear my accent. And I'm a founder director of Accelerator, which is a hybrid version of incubator accelerator program here in Los Angeles. We have very structured programs. They're different programs, from 4 up to 12 weeks. We work with early stage companies, early stage startups, and later stage startups. We actually also work with a lot of students. Most of our participants are international. So we have probably 70–80% of our companies from all around the world. And until March, of course, we had companies traveling to Los Angeles to spend 3–4 months with us. Nowadays, it's primarily online, and we hope to get back inside our space very soon. 3D printing and 3D technologies is definitely one of the fields I've been busy, been working a lot. It's not just the printing, but it's also the other technologies that are surrounding the ecosystem. And I'm looking forward to talk more.
There's just so much in here. I mean, I remember the first experience I got with 3D printing from the investment standpoint was an accelerator as well that we used to run. And seeing it on the consumer side with a 3D printing pen all the way up to carbon and what they're doing on a very mass scale, which I'm sure we're going to get a chance to talk about. And also getting a chance to see the early days of Made in Space and the idea that we're going to be doing, or we are now doing 3D printing in space for tools. There's just so much that can be done and unpacked, both positively and then also futuristically, as we're going to get to. And Vadim, again, such a pleasure to always have you on the show. There's a wealth of knowledge in the head of yours that you generally share with us here today. But today we're talking about 3D printing, which you have a few investments in, and I'll let you give an intro and a little background.
Thanks, Kyla, and it's always a pleasure to be here. So basically, I'm investing for the past few years in deep tech solutions all over the place. My core focus is actually autonomous transportation and similar things, or autonomous technologies. However, 3D printing, believe it or not, actually core 3D technologies, believe it or not, are a centerpiece around some of the solutions in the autonomous space, from actually autonomous navigation to a few other things like the 3D mapping. One of my actually investments I'm very proud of is a company called WebGears, which is a core technology applicable everywhere, from 3D printing to VR solutions to gaming or advertising. And I'll be chatting about.
Awesome, wonderful. And as I said, we all have areas of expertise in this space. We've seen it grow and shrink, and also the hype, I would say, come. And we're still a little bit, when it comes to that hype cycle, we're still somewhere in between where this technology is, because again, it's been talked about for so many years. The idea that it would be both in the enterprise and it would be in our homes. The devices that we had on the consumer side came and went. Those that we've talked about in the enterprise have been not very well talked about. And we did speak a little bit on a recent episode here on VCTV on 3D printing of food and some of the activities that's happening in Israel around 3D printing of steaks, which I am very hopeful to try someday. But there is a whole different world around 3D printing where we've talked about it from clothes, shoes, etc. To both of you, I mean, what are you seeing as kind of the current state of things right now around 3D printing? In my opinion, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think it's still in the early innings. There's something big warming up, but it feels like we haven't even begun to see what we're capable of. So, Vadim, let's start with you. Where do you see things at currently in terms of 3D printing?
So not only in 3D printing, but in 3D in general, it has been a very hyped up technology for the past, I know, maybe 10 to even more years. Everybody was saying, like, 3 years down the road, we're all going to be all 3D, AR, VR, 3D printing, etc. But it really never took off. And every time, every year, literally, people are saying it's just 3 years down the road, which is why I've looked at a lot of 3D printing technologies from very industrial applications like the printing of metallic structures to carbon to whatever, but never actually made my mind to invest in one. And the core reason for this is 3D is still, to be honest, it's too bulky as a format. I mean, when did people start? Let's take a look at internet video. I mean, look at it 15 years ago. People were also saying, it's going to go online, it's going to get there, but it never really gotten there because of the bandwidth and because of the processing power you needed. Now you can watch an awesome video, high compression, really good quality on a cell phone, right? Because the processor gotten there, because the connectivity has gotten there and whatnot. In 3D, we're still relatively far away from this. So, which is why on my end, and the reason why I made the investment in one of the companies there is to go below, to go into enabling technology. Like, for example, company I've invested in, WebGears, what they do is they have their own 3D format, which represents the same type of object, like 20 to 100 times smaller, not kidding, without any loss of quality or detail, and which is 6 to 8 times less compute intense, which makes, like, let's say you design the model in CATIA or in Autodesk, and it weighs like 5 gigabytes, 10 gigabytes. With WebGears, the very same thing would weigh literally up to 100 times less, and you would be able to open it in the browser on your cell phone. It's that good, literally. So that's, for me, whichever 3D printing technology, 3D design technology and whatnot would win, they still would need to rely on a core tech like that. And again, at this point, I feel it's unique. Who knows? Maybe there will be, or maybe there are other technologies which offer similar things. But for me, that is the piece which was missing before.
I think you're right. I mean, it's that, and also just easeability, right? Just the idea of 3D printing something is not easy in some degree, right? You have to have some expertise to do it, and I'm hoping both you challenge me on that. There you go.
Sorry for basically jumping in. Not really. I mean, today, anybody. I mean, I know kids who are like, I don't know, 8 years old, which have just downloaded 3D models from the internet. They have a 3D printer, and it all works, right? So on some level of consumer application, it's already there, but it's not getting massive because precisely a little bit more complex models, they're already too bulky and too heavy. I mean, you want to print a toy, you can do this right now in a matter of a couple of clicks and nothing will stop you. However, if you want to really like print, design a good house and then send it out somewhere to print, you'll find yourself with the need of sending huge amounts of data, of making sure the other person on the other end has the right piece of software and that the printer actually is capable of printing that. So again, it's that piece of professional, let's say mid-range printing, which is missing, because again, on the low end, you have kids and very standard printer. On the very high end, you have super expensive machines, huge budgets and whatnot, but everything in between, it's missing. That's the
I think you're spot on. And then the other point you brought up too is price, which we'll get to, and then also enabling technologies, right? There is something else that's still missing in that puzzle. So Alessandro, to you, same question. I mean, what are you seeing as the current state? I know Vadim mentioned a ton of points, but what else are you seeing, or what have you seen as the current state of 3D printing?
Yeah, probably I've mentioned it other times. I was lucky to work very early on technology, software development, and that gave me exposure to different industries and different fields. And what I believe, and I think Vadim made a point over there, is that really to me, it depends also on the culture of the specific industry. So in some industries, the 3D printing had a very fast progress. Let's think about the prosthetics or the medical or the dentistry, right? There are studios, thousands, hundreds of thousands of studios. They manage their own 3D printing in-house. It's not that it's not the same in many other fields. So in my case, I've been experimenting and working on companies that created 3D products. And at the end of the day, we ended up using other technologies just because it wasn't that easy. So I brought this one, and we have it's it's a self-portrait, Van Gogh's portrait. And a few years ago, with a friend of mine, a neuroscientist from UCLA, a great neuroscientist, pretty well known, Martin Monti. We had an idea of creating art for visually impaired people, essentially. So we decided to start, automating some of the extrusions, creating some 3D shapes out of 2D paintings. And that was, a very long research. I've done a lot of work on 3D printing technologies, infusion, different kinds of molding, thermoforming. And then at the end of the day, we found a company that is building jewelry, right? So we needed a kind of precision. And we triangulated a new industrial process, putting together a jewelry company with a company that actually built dashboards from Mercedes. So only putting those together, we were able to achieve this quality. And actually we printed many more. I mean, we had probably 10 different paintings, and there are hundreds of these copies in museums, definitely in Italy, hopefully other countries soon. So we passed the project to a university, and now they opened a tactile research center for visually impaired people. So it's always fascinating to come up and understand how different industries could work together, how the industrial process can create innovation. And there are museums, there are experts that are working on with blind people on tactile experiences, and I've never seen anything like that. So I think, unfortunately, I have to say this one is not 3D printed. I knew we needed to use other 3D technologies in order to create it. It was a 3D milling, CNC milling machine, very precise, and then thermoforming, and then another robotic arm that was spraying this sort of resin on top of the thermoforming. So it's still all pretty much 3D technologies, but it wasn't ready for 3D printing. I mean, Vadim touched on that. It's sometimes the scale of the work that you need, the manufacturing that you need, right? And you have to rely on other injection forming, on other technologies at the end of the day. Still, I mean, we have to wait a few more years until we're gonna get some serious, supply chain with at the level, industrial level with 3D printing. Even though I know that there are companies that are already doing that for small scale productions. I'm thinking about the sports car at the competition level, like a Ferrari or other brands. They're doing that already. And actually, there are interesting pivots during the COVID, while they started producing pieces and pipes for ventilators. And I think pivots was also some of the topic of the conversation. So those companies, even though producing a small amount of numbers of pieces, they were able to pivot and help. I believe still within the order of tens of thousands of different pieces.
It's an interesting point. So you're seeing companies that are starting to pivot. So going from making parts for one particular subsector to another. So whether it's going from Ferrari to pipes or HVAC systems, for instance. What are some of those underlying technologies a little bit more? I'd like to dive into that. So to both you and Vadim, I mean, well, 3D tech in general, right? So whether it's 3D printing, it's 3D, holographic or immersion, it's 3D food, it's 3D anything that we can feel, touch, and see in real life. There are so many underlying technologies, and Vadim, you mentioned data and how much data that is comprised in some of these mega-sized files around 3D printing. What are some of those underlying technologies that people should be paying attention to, or that you have seen in your areas of expertise as well? So Vadim, let's start with you, and then Alessandro will come back.
Again, it's not only about data, because data is an integral part of that, but basically you're also looking at a very large size of the object, which occupies in the memory of the device. Like, for example, today, if you use traditional technology, you won't even be able to load, let's say, a model of a house directly onto your cell phone. It simply won't have enough memory, or you'll need to do some sort of partial loading and caching and whatnot, and that just doesn't work. So basically, for me, the core technologies which are needed are precisely the ones that are optimizing the way the computer works with 3D objects, the way the 3D objects are representing, reducing their size in terms of the amount of data which is needed to represent it, and B, which reduces their compute intensity for them to be made really available on your everyday device, any size of it. So that's basically all I'm looking at right now. And again, I've looked at a large number of applications, but all of these, they're absolutely awesome, but there is a missing piece which will prevent some of these to become global very fast. And by the way, on a side note, I'm a big believer in 3D food printing. So actually, I am looking at a company right now in that space, and it's not an Israeli one. There is also a company which is headquartered in the US, and part of the research is done in the US, part in Russia. It's 3D bioprinting. And they actually have quite a wide approach, starting from food. And they have already, I think, partnered with KFC on delivering their first printed nuggets. Yeah, absolutely. I thought the same thing too. But also to medicine and actually printing the entire sort of body parts in the future. So I actually think that this particular branch of 3D printing is going to become absolutely major. So now people are printing, the protein for food. Soon enough, they'll be really printing their entire organs. And if you have seen a movie called, I think, Face Off, where they're reprinting an ear of a guy, right? So these are some of the things which soon enough will be absolutely, like realistic. So, anyways, that's
No, I'm with you. I'm only laughing because Face Off is just it's a classic movie. For those who have not seen it,
yeah.
take time. I know you've got plenty. You're sitting in front of a screen. Take time to watch Face Off this weekend. It will blow your mind. But to Vadim, to your point, I mean, you're bringing up such a great topic here, is that expansion, right? When we talk about 3D printing, it's so much focused on some of those things we spoke about earlier, right? The hard goods being done at the enterprise or even at the consumer level, the toys, the few things here and there. But I mean, this gets expanded very quickly. I mean, whether that be our food, whether that be proteins, we get into medical, we get into genomics, we get into body parts, we get into all this stuff. This is stuff that's actually happening, to your point, where we're seeing 3D printing of tissue, we're seeing 3D printing of cells, we're seeing this stuff happen. We see that. The average day consumers may not, but that is stuff that is going to be coming, and it's just going to get cheaper, faster, and better. To your point, but Alessandro, I want to let you jump in as well on that point.
Yeah, I'm always hyper fascinated by the by cyber physical platforms and ecosystems, right? So 3D printing, I think it definitely has a big role in the physical space. But in my past projects experiences, also one among several investments, it's in Ruset. So this company, they are optimizing the merchandising essentially for gaming companies, and they are creating a sort of platform where an ecosystem where company game developers, also mid-sized small game developing companies, they could create merchandise, right, for their gamers. And this is not directly related to 3D printing, but it's definitely one of the pieces that has to be in this large platform, in this large ecosystem. So these are, I think, one of the enablers we were talking about before. So creating ecosystems that are really powerful when they are together. Another example is not directly related, but still within the ecosystem, it's like 3D scanning technologies, right? We've been talking, we mentioned about 3D, I see Vadim approving. We're talking about using CATIA or other 3D design tools, but what about the product we are creating has to be first, in the process of creating it, there is a 3D scanning technology involved. And we work with a bunch of the companies, even with research centers that have a 3D RGB scan technology. So they can scan also the color at the level of the micron. And that's really a lot of data, as Vadim and you, Kyle, were mentioning about. We're talking about gigabytes of data. So it's definitely, and actually the company was in Italy, so we were dealing with the data over here. So just moving those files across, sending it. I think it was WeTransfer, still using WeTransfer to do those. So we're still using very somehow old technology to do basic tasks like sending one to each other huge amount of data. So again, for me, it's interesting to see the ecosystem, how they relate, how each specific technology relate to each other, and what is I call it cyber physical systems, probably because it was a terminology that came from the academia.
Go ahead, Vadim.
Kyle, I think you're muted. Oh, yeah. So basically,
Yep.
First of all, Alessandro, I think we really do need to chat about you transferring this huge amounts of data, maybe you do want to recode it into WebGears format. So just trying to get a new customer here for a portfolio company. But on a side note, and actually deviating slightly from the 3D printing topic, so I think that 3D tech in general has a much vaster use. I mean, again, let me get to my point of biggest interest, which is autonomous navigation. So when you're doing this in the field, it may be a no-brainer, right? But when you're doing it in the city, you actually need to do an active, you need to have an active usage of the actual 3D patterns of your 3D geometry in the city for your devices to fly without colliding with anything there. So I would say that 3D maps, and not only visual 3D maps, but analytical 3D maps, are going to become an absolutely huge topic. I mean, and again, don't look at it at what you have right now with Google, which you look at something and it's sort of kind of like 3D-ish. No, it's not about that. It's about like true hardcore analytical 3D format, which would allow you to really, your autonomous devices, including cars and whatnot, to actually navigate in a fully autonomous way in this digital 3D world. So this is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar topic. And some of the companies, actually even large ones, are already dedicating their resources to this.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue. And Alessandro, I think you might have had a point, but I think that's a good segue into the bigger picture of 3D, right? So we talked a little bit about 3D printing, but what are the bigger opportunities around 3D? So three-dimensional representation of anything, right? We've talked on previous episodes, and probably will a little bit later today, around the digitization of physical to digital. So the digital twin movement, where we take something that once was physical that we're using in our daily life, whether that be a phone or something else, and bring that into a digital environment, right? So now you can actually see a digitized representation of something, whether it's a supply chain, it's a given product, it's a entire city, grid, and the like. Now take that into a 3D environment, not just 2D, but now you've got a 3D representation, something you can see, you can feel, you can actually manipulate in 3D space. I've seen a number of companies as well starting to get into that area, not just on the digitization, but also from a VR and immersion standpoint. When you bring something like that into a 3D, how do you interact with it as well? So Vadim, you're bringing up a great point. The idea of 3D mapping, just the 3D movement in general, is happening in many different ways. We'll see what happens as quantum computing comes out and how we handle the processing of that with current technology today. But nonetheless, it is something that's here. Alessandro, are you seeing anything further in that 3D big overarching world? And we've talked about holograms. We talked about what that may or may not bring. That's been teased out for many years. Let's move past holograms, but let's focus on that bigger picture of what 3D can be and is, to Vadim's point.
I don't know. At the top of my mind, when you started asking me this question, came a company we are working with, Archifiction, and was created by two architects in Los Angeles. Essentially, they had an idea of creating 3D environments out of physical spaces, so with video projections. And so imagine you enter in a space, it's fully video projected, and there's a system that tracks your position. So actually the geometry, it's really like when it's a virtual reality experience. Essentially, everything is moving around according to your position in the room, and the geometry really tricks your perception. And so that definitely something interesting, different than the usual headset experience with VR, and it could work in many situations. And they're actually still exploring so many cases. Real estate, just when somebody's showcasing an apartment with different furniture, with different styles. Experiences like for theme parks, any kind of gaming experience as well. And when I see these examples, they are somehow different from others. I'm always interested, because over there definitely there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of opportunity to explore. Of course, I mean, we're talking about very new technologies with, let's say, new cases, and It's not for mass distribution yet, but eventually they're actually building, and they built 4-head video projectors that you could hook up in your room. So it's not that far away. But I see, I'm always intrigued by creating, cyber physical experiences, virtual experiences. You know that with Noble, which is my partner in investment fund, the Accelerator Venture One, and Noble Dracon, we talk a lot about AR, augmented reality and virtual reality. So I believe that innovation, that's where there are overlaps between the different ecosystems, different industries, perhaps, and definitely, like in this case, I'm really supporting Ping the archifiction I was talking just about. They actually have an office in Palo Alto for marketing and demonstration, and of course the engineering factory is in Shenzhen.
I love it. So guys, let's switch gears one more time and let's talk about the opportunities. So you've both mentioned some of the companies you're invested in, some things you're looking at, but to our audience, whether they're investors or they're entrepreneurs, where are you seeing the areas of opportunity to start building in this space or to start investing? And we can take them two separate directions. So let's start with investing. If you're an investor, you're talking to an investor, where are you seeing and what are you telling them as the opportunities areas that they should be paying attention to when looking to start making bets in either 3D printing or 3D technologies in general? And then we'll get to the entrepreneur side. So Vadim, we'll start with you and then Alessandro.
So basically on my end, first of all, a little bit biased opinion, but definitely enabling technology, basically the technology which is able to make 3D happen. I mean, take a look at what we have right now. The 3D, we don't even have it in a decent way in advertisement. People are unable to see like a 3D ad in a meaningful way because it takes for it like an eternity to load. So how can we talk about quality exchange of 3D data or quality interaction with 3D, be it in AR, VR, in really high quality, when we can't even afford to post a 3D ad which would load in under 10 seconds. So this is the first one. And the second one, in terms of the application, like truly I deeply believe that companies which are in food printing and medical tissue printing, teeth implant and whatnot, are going to be worth gold. Me personally, again, it's unlikely that I would invest in this because I invest one level below in the enabling tech. But I really see that the companies in these spaces are going to take a huge price. And of course, 3D mapping, just count on that. 3D mapping, I'll go out of my way to find a company which does it in a really high quality way and invest in that.
Audience, you heard him. 3D mapping, that's your guy right there. We'll talk about where you can find him here shortly. Alessandro, to you investors, what are you telling investors that they should be paying attention to and placing their bets in this space?
Yeah, of course, I talk primarily always about my experience, right? Coming from my experience, from my point of view. So a couple of things. I used to work with early stage startups. So, and especially in our accelerator and with the fund I'm building with Noble, we're still dealing with early stage startups. There are some later stage, but still far from the resources that printing company would need, a technology company that produce printing technology would need, right? And so it's still a lot of enabling technologies, enabling solutions. Something interesting that I've been seeing over the years is that the convergence between the gaming industry and the AR industry, AR solutions. I mean, so we have soft systems that are able to bootstrap and create new experiences fairly quickly compared to 10, 15 years ago, right? So just think about the game engines all around there, and the AR concept, the new AR concept here in there with the different kinds of headsets. So that, I think, is gonna unlock a lot of opportunities, again, with the right ideas, with the right content, because I always believe of this mix of content and technologies. Of course, I mean, the technology itself, it's of course a great opportunity for investment, but from what I see from my angle is that there has to be a complete has to be a complete ecosystem with very smart ideas in terms of content and services that are provided. There is for example, you mentioned briefly about publishing and advertising. I know I have some friends working on another company. It's called Inglobe Technologies. They became famous when they created the first plugin that allowed all of us to start seeing what AR really was, using those big QR codes and using I think it was the tool, the 3D design tool that Google released many years ago for free, SketchUp. So you were able to install this plugin and you were able to play with this tag and see the building on top of it. They created that plugin. So I'm really working, they are their friends. I'm not working with them. Sometimes we collaborate, but those are the companies we look to work with. So they are enabling other companies to create also solutions and technologies and opportunities.
I love it. So on for both of you, anything left that you would recommend to entrepreneurs if they're looking to build or they are currently building in the space? Should they be, which direction should they be looking for opportunities and or pivots in this space? And Vadim, will come to you, Alessandro, and then we'll come up to the lightning round here in just a moment. But Vadim, any other thoughts you would give to the entrepreneurs that opportunities or directions they should be focusing and building in this space over the next couple of years?
So basically, I'll give again a very biased view in this particular sense. I'll give what I'm particularly looking for at this moment. So if there is a traditional a traditional advertisement agency which wants to find sort of their future, and you want to switch to 3D advertisement, reach out and talk to me. I have something for you, perhaps an idea plus some funding. So
there you go.
I'll leave it at that.
Second time, ladies and gentlemen out there in the audience, second time for an investor calling out. Alessandro, you got to match that. What are you seeing for entrepreneurs out there right now?
I think that creativity in the way we build and we work in our program, in our accelerator program, plays a big role. It's not something that you just come up one day with, but it's an exercise. It's like how to make a pivot. It's something that every week, it's like when a founder every week more or less checks the numbers, and if they're going to the right in the right direction, if everything is working out, the risk level and the market and so forth. So it's an exercise that you do pretty much all the time, and you're evaluating always opportunity over there. You're always recreating, redesigning, and making sure that the view it's okay, in the sense that there's a map of opportunities that you are creating with your company, with your idea, and the pivots are there, or they have to be already in that map. If you don't see them, it's because you didn't push that enough. And then if you do this job, eventually you will be able to see all the pivots that are available currently every month, every pandemic, every after pandemic, always. Actually, entrepreneurs are always in a pandemic state, so especially early stage founders. Shouldn't make any difference.
I would say, yeah, as an early stage founder, as a founder in general, but as an early stage founder, you're always looking for the right direction to head in, but pick your focus and go as well. So gentlemen, we are coming to lightning round. I want to come to you both for closing thoughts and any advice you have to those that are looking to get into the 3D space. We've talked a lot about where things are moving or not moving, but it is a long journey. As we've all noted, this has been an industry talked about for many decades, and in some cases many years, or is going to be something for many years ahead. But any advice you have, last thoughts, And then where can everyone find you online as we come to the top of the hour? So Vadim, we'll start with you. And I know you've got one good company to name drop, and I think you should one more time by all means, but any closing thoughts, any advice? And then again, where can everyone find you online?
So in terms of advice, to be honest, it's difficult to give the advice here in this particular space. I would say that try to find a good application which has the market today. I would shoot for 3D advertisement as one of the easier options to get into the market. And again, for that, please reach out to me. In terms of enabling technology, just take a look at WebGears. It's webgears.app. This is a company, an enabling company, which allows you to do magic with anything 3D. And as far as where to find me, on LinkedIn, Vadim Tarasov, or my email is vt@aas.fund. So that's pretty much it. Thanks a bunch.
Those who are out there, if you're following any of Vadim's advice and you're not reaching out to him, he's giving you every chance. Don't come back and say you can't find an investor. This man right here has got you. All right, Alessandro. Once again, Vadim has set you up. You got to match this. So any closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
So yeah, sure. It's I'm fascinated about technology itself. I've been developer. I've been working on many different applications, from AR. 3D definitely has been there. Computer vision. I believe that the convergence, just want to reiterate, the convergence between gaming and AR and all the 3D enabling technologies is gonna unlock a lot of opportunities in terms of investments, in terms of excitements. So I'm definitely working in this area. I definitely work and collaborate, and we're looking at, in terms of investment, in terms of working with in the accelerator with a number of these companies. Some of them I mentioned during the meeting. And if you're interested in working with them, if you're interested in working with us, you can always find me on LinkedIn, Alessandro Marianantoni, and I'm founder director at M Accelerator.
Wonderful. And gentlemen, thank you both for tuning in, or excuse me, for joining today and sharing your thoughts and insights. To our audience, make sure you do reach out to both Vadim and Alessandro. They are available 24/7, 365, coast to coast, country to country, wherever they may be, or where you may be as well. Do not hesitate to reach out to them online. And if you like what you heard today, make sure you click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. And as investors, if you'd like to be on a show like today and share your thoughts and insights, thank you, Alessandro. We'd love to have you. Reach out to Elena, to LA Token, or to myself, and we'd be happy to find the right topic for you. And to the entrepreneurs, again, this is a stage just for you, as it is for investors. If you'd like the chance to pitch us, Vadim, Alessandro, and others, please do reach out. We'd love to have you, along with being able to pitch our live audience at any time. And a big thank you to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible. I'm Kyle Lecant, your host. We'll be back here in just a short little bit to continue today's episodes of VCTV as we get into our next topic, playing further on today of 3D technologies, looking at fintech and blockchain. What is all happening in this crazy, wild world of these technologies that we continue to live on a day-to-day basis. So stay tuned.